for joining us tonight at 11 o'clock. I'm Jeff Slauson. Chris Fry has the night off. As many of us prepare to celebrate our nation's Independence Day, local police, along with other first responders, paused to honor and remember one of their own. Michelle Nix joins us live from Cleveland, where a vigil just wrapped up. Michelle, for fallen officer Jamieson Ritter.
That's right, Jeff. Good evening. Tomorrow, July 4th, marks the one-year anniversary of the tragic murder of Cleveland police officer Jamieson Ritter. He was shot and killed just hours into the Independence holiday in 2024. Behind me, his cruiser, taken out of service, sits as a memorial to the fallen officer. Tonight, those who knew and loved him gathered here at the 3rd District Police Station to honor his memory. Now, the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association and Officer Ritter's fellow academy classmates held the candlelight vigil on this first anniversary of his tragic death. Among those gathered, his girlfriend, Marcy Garcia, who I was able to give a hug. She acknowledged this first anniversary is very painful and a reminder of what happened that tragic day. Officer Ritter was shot and killed on East 80th Street while serving a warrant on a suspect, Delonte Harding. Harding was on a bicycle and had 2 swords and a gun. He opened fire on police, the first shot hitting Officer Ritter. Father Douglas Brown says Officer Ritter's light will always shine because he lived his life serving his country in the military and working to keep the streets of Cleveland safe.
Ritter was a born leader. He was a born leader, and he was able to accomplish things, and he made it look effortless. He really did, and that's part of the pain of our loss. We promised to never forget. And so when I talked about the candle and preserving that flame and preserving the memory of Ritter, that's what we mean, that we'll never forget what he's done and the good things that he did for us. And we certainly always remember his family as well in New York and acknowledge their grief and their loss as well.
Yes, Officer Ritter was just 27 years old when he was shot and killed, again, just hours into the July 4th holiday last year. Those who knew and loved him and who gathered here say they want to remember how he lived his life, not how he died. Reporting live in Cleveland, Michelle Nix, 19 News.
Now you're